military folks in those particular places. And certainly not in the presence and the level that we're presently doing. But there are other things that we can do as well, and we've done it tremendously in terms of our foreign policy, our aid. I have a fellow that I met years and years ago, and he came from a place called Biafra, Nigeria. And he was one of the very first, growing up, I remember watching these young Biafrans, and they had the bloated stomachs from malnutrition. And Frederick had just arrived in the United States, and I met him at a bus stop, of all places, in Hutchinson, Kansas. And he came up and asked me for a ride to McPherson College. Somehow he got a scholarship to go to McPherson College. And I was working at a political booth at the Kansas State Fair. So I offered, after he convinced me he was from Nigeria, to take him to McPherson if he would come to the Kansas State Fair with me first. And as we went to the Kansas State Fair, we ate some hamburgers and things like this, and he was telling me that the greatest man he ever knew from America, in his opinion, was Richard Nixon. And why? Because Richard Nixon did airdrops of foodstuffs over Biafra in the middle of the Civil War in Nigeria. And so it saved he and his family. And these are the things that America can do to really try to save, to win hearts and minds, and to try to change the way that the world is moving in one direction. And interestingly enough, right across from it, I was working at the Democratic booth. So no surprise, who was working right in front of the Democratic booth? Standing right there was Bob Dole. And it was 1980. And you know, Bob Dole was just being his very gracious self, you know, his left hand's out. Bob Dole, Bob Dole, Bob Dole, right in front of the Democratic booth, which is fine. I have no problem. I think we have to be a nonpartisan nation. We have to find ways across the aisle. And Frederick said one other thing. He knew American politics. He goes, that man was a vice presidential candidate in 1976. And you know what he doesn't have around him? And this is coming from a young man who was in a Civil War torn area. There's not one machine gun around him to protect him. Not one machine gun. And that says something pretty amazing for the United States. That we don't notice these things because we take these things for granted. But from an international perspective, finding ways of creating peace and not having to have guns to protect ourselves was something that Frederick immediately noticed. And I would have never even made note of it. I was just a Kansas country boy, and I would have never made note of that whatsoever. So I promised you at the beginning that I would share with you just a moment about the box, this Christmas box that I passed around. And I had a chance to travel to Turkey about 9 months ago, and I spent 2 weeks in Turkey, and you know, we had a chance to visit a wide variety of locations. This wasn't just a tourist trip, this was a cultural opportunity. And so we visited the television stations, some television stations in Turkey. We visited hospitals that they were putting together in Turkey. You know, Turkey is one of the founding members of NATO and is a key ally in our fight against terrorism. So we have to be very, very sensitive to the needs of Turkey, and it's a Muslim country. Probably guesstimating 80 to 90% of the population are Muslim folks there. And so we, in addition to getting a chance to meet all these things, and I also got to meet Syrian refugees. And you know, we'll never appreciate how lucky we are to be in America and not have a refugee status, except maybe on our borders. And to be able to actually not have to worry about my 4-year-old grandson being 25 pounds and emaciated because there's no food. But one of the places that we got to go was Ankara, Turkey. And we had dinner at a Turkish businessman's house. And this businessman runs what would be equivalent to the Enterprise car rental company in America, but it was the Turkish car rental company. I don't remember the name of it. And he had a very nice family, huge family, 25, 30 folks were in attendance. He had neighbors and family and friends coming over to meet these half dozen folks from Kansas. And it was really a wonderful experience. And you know, my cousin, she knew we were going to have to do some kind of gift exchange, and so she was traveling with me again, and she thought this really great gift exchange idea would be that she'd carry 5-pound rocks with a sunflower painted on it. Now, do you have any idea how heavy it is to carry 10 5-pound rocks around when you're traveling across the world? And so it was a great idea, I thought, And it shared something about America and Kansas. That was great. And they were all happy to get this big rock with a sunflower panel. So as we were exchanging gifts, I was given this Christmas box by the husband, the host gentleman who ran the enterprise or the car rental company. And this is one of those few moments where I paused and didn't speak when my mind was thinking stupid. Because my first thought to myself was, well, we just gave this guy a rock from Kansas with a sunflower on it. And I kind of wanted something from Turkey. And I thought it'd be great to have, a Turkish scarf, anything to bring home. I thought that would be nice. And it took me a couple of minutes to realize that this man of great Muslim faith, who has done great volunteer work himself in Nigeria and other countries throughout the world in building hospitals, was giving me this Christmas box to let me know that it was okay for me to be a Christian, it was okay for him to be a Muslim, and that we can find commonality in this world without having to go out and kill each other. So it is critical that we find ways of working with our allies in Turkey, in Israel, and other places in the world to try to stem violence and to try to stem extremism. But this box, sometimes, it's not just me that's talking when we're thinking stupid. Sometimes we need to take a moment to let that stupid thought pass us by and realize that there's another perspective. And that other perspective was that most people throughout the entire world want to be able to raise their grandchildren and their children and their families in peace and happiness and harmony. And I hope that we can find a way to do that through the United States. And I would love to be able to do that as your next congressman from the Kansas 4th Congressional District. I thank you for your time and willing to answer any questions you may possibly have. Thoughts? Well, I guess I answered everything. That's really great. I don't think that many congressmen can say that, or congressional candidates at all. But Terry, I want to thank you for allowing me to come down today, and thank you, my camera operator, for putting everything together for us very well. Thank you. Yeah. Favors.
You could draw, this is for a makeup drawing.
There's names I can see in there, so I can't see that, right?
Leon Lungwit.
Oh, these are tickets, so whoever actually, there's a secret to these raffle drawings. I found it over the 20 years I've been involved in. If you actually bend them like this, you actually get a better chance of winning. And whoever put this one in bent wins. And the last 3 digits are 057. 057.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Bill Mason from Starkey.
All right. Well, appreciate it very much.
Terry, my pleasure.
Okay,
we'll have to work on this tape. All right, Dorothy.
Very well done.
Thank you. Okay, so
we better leave it together.
Well, I think we'll just take the tape off because in a period of time where I have more time, we'll be able to figure out how to do this.
Okay. How do we stop this thing?
Oh, stop.